I'm Kuldeep.
And I'm Peter.
This is the Root Motive Podcast.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is the Root Motive Podcast first episode. My name's Peter, and I'm here with Kuldeep.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, so this is basically just going to be some intro, background coverage, insight into what we're going to be talking about going forward, focus of the podcast, kind of our philosophy, and social media contacts that you can reach us through, as well as our upload frequency and stuff like that, and just kind of ironing out the different general details of the show we're going to be doing.
For sure. So, first question, what is the podcast about? Literally anything. Me and Peter, we go way back. We have interesting conversations. We just thought it'd be fun to put it out there, just kind of a little project born out of doing a lot of nothing in quarantine. Um, just gonna go through some potential podcast topics, current events, coronavirus right now, other foreign conflict that might not be covered in the news right now, because it's corona's all over the place. And as the podcast goes on, we'll cover other stuff that's pressing. I personally like a lot of movie, TV, comedy reviews. I'll talk about that. I'm big on having fun with that. I'm a big fan of space exploration, so talk about some of that that's going on in the news, different companies, how far they're going with their rockets and satellites and whatnot. We're interested in economics, the job market, stock market, kind of look into that, maybe learn a little more. And Peter had some other ideas on technology and health and wellness.
Yeah. So one specific topic within technology that I kind of have an interest in is non-native EMFs, which isn't related to 5G, but also encompasses more than that. So that's one thing we kind of wanted to devote an episode to discuss, as well as maybe like current like innovations and recent tech news, um, artificial intelligence design, stuff like that related to current innovations in the tech world. I don't have a rigorous computer background, but Kuldeep and I kind of together have a sort of peripheral interest in that. And then I also have like an investment in health and wellness topics. So I'm interested in covering things like autoimmune diseases, which include like type 1 diabetes, hypothyroidism, chronic fatigue syndrome, which is kind of debatably included in there, lupus, other autoimmune diseases like that, and kind of breaking that down, metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, the crisis going on in America and worldwide related to that, ancestral dieting, different like takes on that, not necessarily promoting any one ideology, but kind of just looking at different frameworks for dieting, and also exercise regimens, exercise routines, and environment is another topic that I'm kind of broadly interested in, which includes like wildlife conservation. Besides just looking at it from like a perspective of, oh, is this, or we need to save the polar bears and being kind of hippie about it, actually looking at seeing like food web dynamics of like how conservation is important. That's just one thing that kind of pops into my head. And emissions, and looking at just comparing climate change evidence that's out there versus climate change or evidence that's stacked kind of against climate change, and trying to take a broad approach to looking at, and it's not limited to that. We'll probably think of other topics as well in that. And then also just in science more broadly, I have a particular interest in neuroscience. So I have an interest in breaking down its applications in psychiatry, neuromarketing and its relation to advertising, and how it can be used with integrated with computer science to design like neural network algorithms, and also apply like neuroscientific and psychological principles to advertising, um, as well as like other applications in medicine. Neuroinflammation, connections between the nervous system and immune system is another interaction that's kind of gaining more traction in today's medical field today. So that's another thing we're kind of interested in, or that I'm interested in looking at. And then also some other ones include like epigenetic versus genetic influences, and epigenetics is obviously gaining a lot of traction as well. Looking at quantum biology, which is also emerging and is pretty complex, and I've started to kind of dive into it, but I have a lot more to learn. And also things like topics like systems thinking, NLP, neuro linguistic programming. Those are just some. It's definitely not limited to that. We probably have a lot of different ideas that will come as we go along with the podcast. And yeah, I guess we can go into like some background. about how we got to know each other.
Yeah, so uh, Peter and I, we grew up in Nashua, New Hampshire. I was in fifth grade, he was in fourth grade, and we were neighbors. So we got to know each other. We've been friends ever since. We used to, play basketball, tennis, ride our bikes around the neighborhood, go exploring in the woods, play video games, whatnot. And we did that for many years. And then once we graduated from high school, we kind of went our own ways. So we'll talk about some of our specific interests and what we've been through since graduation. So I think Peter has some things he wants to say.
Yeah. So first, I guess I'll go over like academic background and sort of what I'm interested in career wise. So I'm currently a senior at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, which is in Missouri, studying neuroscience, and I'm going to be graduating this May, hopefully, and taking a few years off before maybe going into a medical school program or a graduate school program for a PhD. I'm not really sure, so that's kind of why I'm taking time off to figure that out. And in general, throughout my undergrad, I've been pretty heavily involved in research. So I guess I can go briefly over some of the projects I've been involved with. First, I worked with emotional development in children and early onset depression, and specifically like depression, also anxiety, general psychiatric symptoms, and looking at what basically was the cause of that and investigating the origins of that. And so I helped with the EEG setup, which is also electroencephalogram, which I won't go into now, and also just with data entry in general. And yeah, and that kind of got me interested in studying neuroscience, cognitive neuroscience, and kind of elucidating more about brain function and brain structure. And then I transitioned to a spatial navigation lab, which looked into the roots of cognitive aging essentially and sort of differentiated different spatial navigation subsets of spatial navigation abilities and kind of how certain ones are preserved throughout the lifespan and others deteriorate. And so I became acquainted with MRI technology and fMRI technology to kind of investigate what was going on in the brain, what certain regions or what networks were responsible for different navigation subset abilities. And basically, I worked with a certain softwares to break apart MRI, fMRI data and statistically analyze basically aging in younger adults' brains across different tasks as well to kind of elucidate what was going on. Yeah, and then I transitioned as well to studying mindfulness meditation because I have an interest in that myself, and will do it avidly. So that there, I kind of conducted independent projects looking at just how the brain was changing over the course of 8 weeks of mindfulness meditation in twin pairs. So one underwent training, the other didn't. Yeah, just in general, I think my undergraduate research experience has kind of been interested in uncovering more about how the brain works, to put it simply. And so I kind of have an interest in applying that in a career setting. And so that's kind of what spawns my interest in medical school or graduate school. So yeah, and I'm going to also be transitioning this summer to an autism spectrum disorder lab. So kind of looking at ways to translate some clinical research, preliminary clinical research into actual treatments using deep brain stimulation to kind of help children with autism improve their symptoms. Because I kind of have an interest in maybe being kind of like a physician scientist and straddling the kind of the aspects of both research and clinical practice. And so, yeah, and that's kind of my academic background. Some other interests, some side interests that are kind of just hobbies and for fun. I'm an avid golfer. Haven't been golfing as much recently, but that's probably I've been doing it since I was 10, and so ever since I started, I kind of got hooked. I used to play basketball, and I still do occasionally, but not as much. I used to run, play tennis with Cooldeep, although I'd smack him every time we played. Um, just kidding. And so yeah, and I like being outside in general, hiking, and I'm an avid reader of both nonfiction and fantasy, and yeah, those are probably mainly my hobbies. Along with I used to play some video games, but not too much anymore. And then in terms of future interests that I have, I'd like to get involved in beat making, investing as well. As Cooley has said, that's kind of something I want to read more about, and I'm starting to read more about as I'm getting ready to kind of adopt a new job. And then I'm also interested in kind of independent software design, and I have kind of a side interest in entrepreneurial healthcare ideas and figuring out how to best tailor information to people who are looking for information on different health conditions and figuring out a way to like synthesize information on the internet in a way that's like helpful and like digestible. So that's kind of a side interest. So getting involved in some more independent software design. I'm starting to play chess on the side, very very lightly. I'm interested in learning to play the guitar, and then in general, I'd like to also kind of become more self sufficient and grow my own food. Maybe even learn how to hunt. I don't know, and yeah, be competent with repairing stuff like that. So yeah, that's about covers for me. I guess we can let Colby.
Thanks, Peter. That was pretty cool. I'm really interested in learning more about your background and your research with the MRIs and whatnot. That sounds really awesome. I personally, I'm a recent college grad. I studied mechanical engineering at the University of New Hampshire and aerospace engineering at the University of Michigan, and I now work in the aerospace industry. So, a couple of research and other work experiences that I've had. I did a summer RU with bio-inspired mechanics of millet seeds. So I did a little bit of analysis and simulation of how millet seeds held up against forces applied. Just kind of look at how we can apply the way that nature's constructed things into man-made construction. So I think that was pretty cool. My senior project at UNH was quadcopters. We built quadcopters from scratch, coded them, made them fly. It was pretty awesome, pretty cool project. The summer after that, I worked at Lindt Chocolate, just like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. There's chocolate floating above us. There is seas of chocolate beneath us. Maybe not as crazy as it was there, but I personally did total productive maintenance and kind of helped with the manufacturing side of things, all the way from beans to the packed boxes. So it was a pretty cool job, I gotta say. At Michigan, I focused in flight dynamics and controls, and I took a few space systems engineering courses as well. So one of my projects was designing a whole interplanetary mission given a vehicle configuration and some requirements. So it was pretty cool to get to live out a dream of making something that could go beyond our Earth. You know what I mean? Like interplanetary. In terms of my interests, like I mentioned before, movies, TV, stand-up comedy, big fan. I, as a hobby, I have a fish tank. I have a couple of guppies and a platy fish. It's pretty cool, 20-gallon tank. And like I said before, space exploration. I used to watch Star Trek, from the Earth to the Moon. I I've been to the Kennedy Space Center. Visited all those different cool museums. Big interest in that. That's why I went into the aerospace industry. Other interests, I've read a few comic books. I'm not that big into comic books, but I've read a few. It's pretty cool. Things I'm interested in learning about, psychology is pretty cool. Learning how people interact with each other kind of helps you with your day to day. Other things, stock market. I've heard a lot of good things. That's one way to get super rich. So kind of want to learn more about that. Filmmaking. I want to learn more about how directors work, cinematographers, cameramen, writers, the whole shebang. I think it sounds really cool. So that's me and Peter's backgrounds and our interests. We just kind of we wanted to give you guys a look into where we're at before we go into some deeper topics. Just so we're not fronting and pretending that we're experts on anything. I think Peter's going to go a little bit into the philosophy of the podcast itself.
Yeah. So with our podcast, basically, like Kuldeep said, we're not experts, so we want to keep everything kind of level-headed and not making any like outlandish claims or extravagant claims about what we're saying, because we're kind of just taking information, synthesizing it in an open-minded way, and then presenting it to the listeners to get you guys thinking and excited about different topics. And so you can kind of, we can kind of start the journey and you can finish it for yourself or go down the rabbit hole of a certain topic yourself and get really involved in it, or just really up to date with it if you want to. And so we want to be critical of what we're analyzing but honest about it. And we also want to kind of prioritize being collaborative, and we're always open to suggestions and feedback about how we can improve the content of our podcast and how we can improve our delivery and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, we kind of want to talk to everybody kind of as a peer, not as any kind of instructor. And yeah, we just kind of want to make this a fun, collaborative like initiative to communicate different ideas about stuff Kuldeep and I are both interested in and want to learn more about. And yeah, hopefully create like an enthusiastic environment for people to learn and check
But
things
we
out
also trying to
afterwards.
have fun,
So
dude. This isn't supposed to be super serious. We're just chilling. We're two guys talking. Gonna try to keep it upbeat, you know.
that's what's up.
So did you mention the emails and whatnot?
No, I should say though, we're also gonna source our information as well, so you can kind of trail. We can leave paper trails back to the sources that we're referencing when we talk, and so kind of just to give more, I guess, credibility to what we're saying and not be postulating ourselves or putting ourselves in like an expert's position.
So yeah, we'll have an email. We'll be on social media. You can find us on social media at Instagram and Twitter at Root Motive Pod. You can comment and email us questions. We want to engage with our listeners. In terms of the future of the podcast, we do plan on bringing guests. I think it'll be really cool to bring people to talk about things that they've learned a lot about. We have friends that might want to talk about astronomy or economics. And Peter was interested in maybe getting some professors on here, which I'd be really happy about. Today's episode, our first episode, maybe a little shorter than the rest of them. We're gonna aim for 20 to 30-minute episodes, about 4 times a month, because that's what we can afford for free right now until we have some sort of income or whatever. That's what we'll put out. Overall, I think that about wraps up today's episode. Peter, did you have anything else to add?
No, dude, I think we're good.
Sounds good, man. We'll upload a couple of more episodes as time goes on and hope you guys tune in the future. So, see you next time.